All right, here's a nervous system. We're going to start with this page. It's on the left-hand side, just after our vocabulary words. I am going to be doing it in lots of colors. I like to use flare pens and thin markers that look like this for my writing, mostly the flare pens. And then I have colored pencils. So you need your colored pencils or crayons. I have the cool twistable ones that I'm trying out. Or I have some twistable crayons. That way I don't have to worry about them being sharpened. But you need to have your colored pencils or your crayons today. I don't use the markers on this part because it would bleed through to the back. I just write on the actual papers. So I just have a regular black pen for that. Okay, let's get to the nervous system. So, in the nervous system, we have many different components. We have the brain. The brain is the control center of the body. It's like the computer modem. Why is this system important? It's important because it tells our bodies what to do. Some things we have to decide to do, and some things happen automatically without us thinking. Now we know that we have the brain. The brain is the organ at the very top of our body in our head, and it is a part of the nervous system. Now we're going to go in detail about the brain, but the brain is what organizes all these signals that comes into it. What happens is we get information from our brain and it touches our skin or parts of our body, and our nerves take the information and they send it through our spinal cord up to our brain. Then our brain decides what to do with that information and how to respond to it. So for example, I stub my toe and I say ouch. However, something happens very quickly in between stubbing my toe, me realizing that it hurts, and saying ouch. I stub my toe and the nerves take in the stimuli, which is information from our environment, and it sends it to the brain through the spinal cord. Now the spinal cord goes from here all the way up to our brain, and it's protected by the backbones, by the vertebrae. Because if we touch it or we hurt it, then something happens, and then the messages can't come from our different parts of our bodies to our brain. It's like a traffic jam. So then it goes to my brain after I stub my toe, and I goes all over to the brain. My brain says, oh, I stubbed my toe, that hurts. And then it sends information back down to the spinal cord to my mouth, and I say, ouch. Now it sounds like that would take a long time, but it actually, think about the amount of time that it takes between you stubbing your toe and you saying ouch. Seconds, right? So the nervous system works very quickly. So the spinal cord sends messages from the brain to the nerves and back. That's nerves, and back. Now, I really like to spend some time coloring my notes just because I like to make it pretty. So I will be back, and you can color your notes and pause it if you would like. I will be back and we'll learn about the different sensory organs. Okay, now I know that we have 5 senses and one is a touch, but touch comes all over your body. It's not one specific spot like the nose and the eyes and things like that. You can get the sense of touch anywhere on your body. You have nerves everywhere in your body. And the nerves are what take in the information from when you are touched. And so that's why I did not list that as a sensory organ, because it's your whole body. Okay, so now you can pause that if you need to finish that, which you probably do. We are going to switch over to the brain specifically. We talked about the whole nervous system, including our spinal cord and our spine. And now, and our nerves, now we're just going to talk about the brain. Okay, so the brain was one of our vocabulary words, and the vocabulary word states that we wrote, it is the organ of the human body that processes information. So we're going to write up here, it is the control center of the brain. Control center of our body, of our body, not the brain, because it is the brain. And it has 3 parts. And we're going to talk about those 3 main parts and what they do. Now the first part I'm actually going to do in red is the cerebrum. The cerebrum it controls voluntary muscles. So when you think about moving something in your body, like I'm going to get up and I'm going to stand up and I'm going to move my feet, those are called voluntary actions. So the cerebrum controls things that you have to think about before you do it. So that's called voluntary. Controls voluntary muscles. It's also the largest part. It's 85% of the brain's weight. Of the brain. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually outline this and then color it in a little bit later a red, so I can see where one starts and one ends. And I'm just going to do right here. I'm not going to go all around. So you can see that that is the largest part of the brain compared to the others. 85% of the brain's weight is in the cerebrum. And if you think about it, the majority of the stuff that our brain does, it takes care of things that our body does voluntary. And that's the majority of the things that we do, is things that we choose to do. Okay. The next part is called the cerebellum. Now the cerebellum I'm going to do in purple. The cerebellum is this part right here. It's at the base of your skull. And this controls the back of the brain. And it also controls muscles working together at the same time. So think about all the different muscles that have to work together for you to walk. That would be the cerebellum. Controls the back of the brain. That's supposed to be brain. And muscles working together. Balance and coordination. So staying up, not falling over. And coordination is being able to use your different body parts together, like with walking. Okay. I'm actually going to just color that. There we go. It's kind of easy. All right. So while you guys are writing that, I think I'm just going to color. Oh, I like these colored pencils. There we go. So the last part of the brain is actually what we call the brain stem. And a stem is something that holds up like a flower. So think about what a brain stem would look like. So I'm going to get green. And the medulla is also known as the brain stem. Now I've talked about voluntary things and how the cerebrum controls the voluntary part of your brain. Now there's some things in your body that you don't think about when you do it, like digesting your food, or breathing, or your heart beating, or your organs working. Things like that. You don't say, okay, I need to take a breath. I need to take another breath to stay alive. Those are involuntary. If that's what we had to do and think about all those things to keep our body alive, then that would be very difficult. So the medulla helps us with that. It is also the brain stem, or known as the brain stem, and it controls involuntary muscles, it also connects the brain to the spinal cord. So when you have stimuli coming in through the spinal cord and into the brain, it has to go through the brain stem first. There we go. Okay. Now, once I'm done with this, there is another system that I don't have a sheet for, and it's very limited in the information that we need to know. And so I'm going to be adding that in at the end of this video. Okay, it's called the Ta-da! All right, so that is my coloring. So I wonder how yours looks compared to mine. I'm going to get my black pen that I know is not going to bleed through, and we're actually going to be learning about the different sensory organs. So we have some sensory organs that take in information into our brain. Like I said, we get some stimuli. So the stimuli are through the sensory organs. Now the sensory organs are organs that help us with our senses, such as our nose. It takes in smells. They call it the olfactory sense. We also have the mouth. It tastes, which is the gustatory sense, which you don't have to remember, but fun fact. The eyes, which is the visual, helps you see. And the ears, which is auditory, they help you hear. Now I know there's five parts of parts of the senses. So we have touch, but touch is all around our body. Remember, we have nerves and little parts that take in the sensory stimuli, and it's all over our body. Every part of our body has those kinds of. All right, so I paused it and I started to color, and I think I'm about done. And now we're going to talk about another system, a very quick system, and it involves the skin, and it also involves our nails and our hair. It's called the integumentary system, and that system basically protects our body from getting germs and dirt and yucky stuff inside of it. So without all of that, our organs would be out and it would be susceptible to everything that's around us. So the integumentary, that's a mouthful. Try to say that 5 times fast. Try to say that 1 time. Took me some practice. It has the skin, nails, and hair, and it protects our body from foreign objects, meaning things that shouldn't be in our body. Now, some things can get in our body through like eating and breathing and germs and things like that, but this prevents the majority of it. And then once it's inside, then there's another system called the immune system that takes over that we'll talk about at another time. So that is the nervous system.